Right, we're gonna be going over the Widlrift meta for 7.2a. First off, we're gonna go with Baron Lane. So with Baron Lane, Shen and Yone have been pretty strong, but a couple variations we're gonna put is Volibear and Jax. With the addition of Dusk and Dawn, they've been really, really strong, and it's been incredibly hard to get through them. They're a bit weak early on, so in their first couple items they do show some weakness, but if they get ahead of the curve, or if they can complete their skin dawn without getting too far behind, they become really crazy powerhouses. Now to counter kind of the top meta, I'd suggest a lot of tank killers. You'll see in S tier there's Camille, Rumble, Vayne. Those are all really strong picks into these guys. Uh, with a couple of more standard tanks down here. Set's okay. Um, and he's also very beginner friendly. So if you're looking to just get into Baron Lane, um, I mean, my top picks would be probably Volibear, Shen, and Jax. Yone can just be a little too weak early on, although he does have some pretty insane scaling. Um, Sion's a bit worse because of the bounty changes. You can no longer just be worth 100 gold and take towers nonstop. Next, but yeah, there's not much else to say about it. Um, if you're looking to like really carry a game and do a lot of damage, Mbess is really good, and so is Aatrox Wukong. They're quite bruisery, although Wukong favors a more tanky build with like Grasp of the Undying or uh, yeah, pretty much Grasp with the Undying and like Sundered or Divine Sunderer and just full tank items after that. He becomes really unkillable with his passive if they don't have good tank killing. But Volibear, Shen, Jax, Yone are just by far the best in the game right now. Uh, and honestly, I'd like maybe put Yone in S tier just because he can struggle just a little too much early. Yeah, otherwise, not too bad. For counters, Fiora is a bit difficult, so I'd recommend someone like Rumble. Uh, Although, if you have problems managing his heat or his ult, it could be a challenge that way as well. But MS is good, Wukong's very good, Camille still good, although I do believe she got nerfed recently. But yeah, next up. Right, and for the mid lane 7.2a tier list, we have Ryze, Talia, Mel in the S tier. Um, However, I find that Orianna and Twisted Fate are also very strong picks. Same with Lysandra. Um, Aurora's fine. Aurora's been okay. She does do a lot of damage, but she does get outranged by a lot of these higher champions, and so life becomes a lot harder. Same with Akali. Um, just a lot more difficult to play. Talia, I'm going to bump down to A plus tier because she can often struggle into some other mages, and she's not the most simple champion you're going to find. There's things like Syndra, can be very strong. We're going to bring her up here too. Um, she's Syndra is very easy to learn and very good in terms of just learning mid lane. Same with Lux, Annie, Ziggs, all very good things. Gonna bring in Ezreal here. Gonna bring in Smolder. Those can all be very successful mid lane. Zillion's fine, but still in the same level as like a Seraphine mid. Just it's a supportive mid lane. You're not really gonna carry. If you're looking to carry, I wouldn't suggest Zillion. He is very team reliant, but maybe if you're dual queue with your jungler, he is a decent pick, but still not anywhere close to the top. So we're gonna have Ezreal and Smolder up here. They're right now probably the best 280 carries, as well as Lucian, but Lucian has a bit harder of a time mid lane because he's such short range. With Smolder, Ezreal, you have the opportunity to poke out your enemy lane and go really aggressive early. Um, but they do, again, struggle very much into the S tier champions mid lane. Ari, another good pick if the enemy team's not too tanky. She can have really high burst. Um, so if I were to put these all in a cohesive list, we're going to do this. Yeah, that's all countered. Nora's okay. Nora, I think, is A plus tier. She's not great. She's very, very squishy. Same with Ziggs, but she has some pretty good damage. But she is on the um, harder end of the spectrum. It's a lot more difficult to pilot. So there we are. We have Ryze, Mel. Mel gets banned all the time, so don't expect to play her very much. If you're going to main her, I'd have a backup champion like Twisted Fate or Orianna. Ryze can also get banned, but if you're looking for a couple picks to just take over games, you have Twisted Fate, Orianna, Lysandra, Ryze, Mel. If your team does have AP, if you have like a Lilia jungle or a Volibear top that's going AP, you can pick things like Ezreal Smolder. They are going to deal mainly physical damage. Ezreal's a bit more mixed, but it's mainly physical at the end of the day, and I think much better than the AP Ezreal builds. So you can pick these guys if your team has AP already. Maybe you have maybe a Lux support, or we've seen some mages go bottom. And so if you're trying to cover and have some physical damage on your team, Ezreal Smolder is the way to go. Yasuo's fine. Yone's okay too. But these guys have the range in the early game to sort of snowball a lot faster. So that is the mid lane tier list. A bit quicker than the other ones. It's pretty straightforward. Um, yeah, there are some issues with it. Like Akali is very good, but harder to play. So I downgrade a couple champions because of that. It's also why Lucian is an A tier. He's a bit harder to play, harder to execute on. Whereas things like Ryze, you just spam your buttons. You one-shot people. They can't really get onto you too well, and you're not doing anything too mechanically outrageous. You're just pushing your buttons. Same with Orianna, Lysandra. You can play around with your ult a bit more on her. Mel, very straightforward. You're just third, first, ulting at some point, one-shotting them. It's very, very standard. 7.2a jungle. Now, as I was saying, so we have Vi and Volibear on the top. They're probably the top two junglers right now. Uh, Nidalee and Lee Sin could be considered S plus tier. However, they do require a lot of mechanical skill and aren't nearly as consistent. Mbess is quite good. Numu's very good. Um, and Kayn can be very good, although I do believe his red Kayn form performs a lot better given the meta. Red Kayn gives him a much better matchup into things like Amumu, Nunu, Volibear, and Vi. And, the rest of it, they don't really have great clear. The first clear is kind of slow. Volibear, Vi probably have the fastest clears early in the game. Viego's up here. His early clear is a lot worse, but it can still keep up with Volibear and Vi, as well as Sin. And Nidalee does have a fast clear, but again, she's very difficult to pilot, and if you consistently want a fast clear on her, you need to put in a lot of games, and so it's not really a pick up and go champion like Volibear is. Uh, Typical builds for Volibear are like Dusk and Dawn with Unending Despair and Sunfire, or you go Thornmail, Twin Guard, all the just the makes you as tanky as possible, all you want. Gargoyle Stoneplate active item is now very good because it doesn't reduce your damage, it just gives you a fat shield. And yeah, I think Jax gets better if he goes against tanks or some auto attackers. Like I think he does have good matchups in Devi and Volibear, as well as Lee Sin and Viego. He just takes a bit longer to scale up, and his clear is a lot worse. So he's not as good, but he is like a decent counter to a couple of strong picks right now. Bramus, pretty much always good into full AD comps. Warwick, he got nerfed, but he is still very strong. I wouldn't put him too high, but I think he is still S tier and can be very good if the enemy carries don't have a lot of protection, like if they don't have a Lulu or if they don't have a Sona or Nami protecting them. I think it becomes a lot easier to play Warwick. And he is just a very simple champion, so he gets to be a bit higher up here. The rest of these champs, nothing too special. We have Fizz, Tryndamere, Mundo, and they're fine, great, but there's just a lot more options to pick. Um, some off-meta junglers are like Nasus, uh, Renekton has been okay, Kale. Kale's very similar to Nyla. Um, they just want to scale up and become unstoppable, but they do have a very weak early game, and you end up giving up a lot of stuff. Rumble can be good if your team desperately needs AP. I almost prefer Rumble above things like Lilia and Evelynn. Rumble's just a lot easier to play and can do a lot of damage if he snowballs properly. Some random picks like Singed, Yone can be good, but again, he struggles with the early clears. So, Kale, Nyla, Rumble are all on the same page of we're very good, but we need scaling. And jungler right now, if you're just sitting in your jungle and farming and letting the other jungler run around ganking on Lee Sin by, you're going to have a really hard time and your team will very likely flame you. So that's about it for the jungle. Here it is. We have, there's the full list. All right. For Dragon Lane, we have some pretty standard. There's not too much to talk about with them. Crit items are having a bit of an issue. They kind of suck. There's a lot of really strong tanks running around, like Shen, Volibear, Set even, and you're going to have a hard time getting through them if you play crit champions. Vayne is a bit odd because she can do crit or on hit, and the problem with her comes about when you are just you're doing a lot of damage, but you're short ranged, and so someone like a Volibear can get onto you pretty easily. So you need some support to help you. And so as a solo carry, she's going to have a harder time than something like a Varus Kaisa or S tier Ezreal. Now, Kaisa is very good. She gets a lot better if you have a duo. If you're Kaisa Lulu or Kaisa Yumi, uh, Kaisa Nami even is pretty okay. You'll do a lot better. But if you're just solo queue, I think she is just down in A tier. Um, you'll notice in the S tier we have 3 caster mages, caster dragon laners. They can stomp their lane early if the enemy misplays, or if you can put on a lot of pressure with like a Braum or Leona. But if you just scale up to one or two items and just start taking towers, pressuring other lanes, taking your tower, going mid, taking mid tower, getting objectives early, you can really snowball games out of control with Ezreal Lucian. Smolder's a bit more on the scaling side. He'll scale up and get really strong marks, get his burn going, and just be really, really dominant. Late game, he has that late game security. Um, Someone like Ezreal does fall off a little bit late game. So if you're finding the games are a bit more messier, you're having a harder time closing out games, maybe you want to pick Smolder or Lucian. Lucian is known for an early game, but going 4 crit items plus Blade Luring King gives him a really strong late game curve where he can just start putting out a lot of damage and assassinating squishies as well. So yeah, you're going to want to stick to the top 3 ADCs. If you're duo, maybe the tier list looks something more like this with Kai'Sa Yunara. Yunara is a bit better on hit right now. The crit items just don't really do it for her. And she just gets so much on hit damage from her first. She can really pop off with an enchanter support. Um, so yeah, I think this is what I'd do if you were duo queue. Maybe Callista even comes up here, or like a Vayne Kog'Maw, they can all be strong with duo queue. Jinx, but Jinx takes a bit too long to scale up. If you're just solo queue, I would recommend sticking to, something more like this, where the hyper carries kind of fall off because, synergizing with your support's not always going to happen. They might just abandon you in group. So Lucian, Smolder, Ezreal, they're very independent. They can do their own thing. Solo carry games very easily. All right. Last but not least, the 7.2a Widlrift support tier list. We have at the top the old reliable Lulu and Nami. They are by far the best 2 supports in the game. They provide everything you need: healing, movement speed, CC, damage, just everything you could ever want comes from Lulu and Nami. Now, a couple of interesting picks are Yumi. She's actually feeling a lot better now, especially if you're duo queue. Um, if you are duo queue, she sort of moves up here along with Seraphine. Seraphine can bully lanes a bit harder if you're duo queue. You can get a bit more synergy there, and she does still provide a lot of team support. Um, if you're, just solo queue support, just really struggling, I wouldn't recommend Yumi as much, but she is still very strong. Um, if you have, if you know you have good AD carry as you climb up the ranks, sometimes you'll have a bit more confidence with picking just Yumi. She doesn't have a lot of agency. She is going to struggle. If your team's bad, you're not going to have any way to win that game, but not bad at all if you're duo queue. So you'll notice that Nautilus is the only S tier tank champion or engaged champion. Uh, he probably has the highest damage and most CC of all the tanks, and can just trade really well with his shield and push lanes. Um, Nami and Lulu right now just have too much early game damage. They can really just bully out the enemy lane, pretty much regardless of who the ADC is. Um, but things like Kai'Sa Nami, Kai'Sa Lulu, Yunara Nami, Yunara Lulu just really stomp lanes and also scale incredibly well. But Nautilus is the one champion who can contest and wave clear and maybe just roam or find those engages to maybe one-shot Lulu or one-shot the AD carry if they don't have flash or something like that. Now, in the A plus tier, there's pretty much the rest of the enchanters are all very good except Janna. Janna's having a hard time right now. But for the most part, if Lulu and Nami are banned or picked, you're going to want to go probably Seraphine. Seraphine has good matchup in them. Again, she can have the wave clear. That's maybe the one hard thing about Nami Lulu is that their wave clear is not the best. They rely on more heavy trading and then getting priority in the lane. Um, and they just do that a lot better than the ones who are supposed to do that, like the Zyras, like the Vel'Koz, the Lux, who should be able to trade a lot better, but Lulu and Nami just are better right now. They're just a little too overpowered. Now, hook champions are struggling. You'll see Pike, Thresh, Blitzcrank are all quite low on the totem pole. Set can be a good option if you're a Baron laner. Uh, if Baron lane is your main role and you get autofilled, Set's probably what you want to pick if you play him. Same with Shen. Uh, they are pretty good. They have some good innate sustain with their shields, and Set also has a lot of passive health regen. If you are more of a mid lane main, Lissandra, you can go a bit of more of a tanky CC build, and that is very nice. A bit of a bruiser build, um, or just good old reliable Seraphine. Is also very good. She can do a lot of damage, but she also has some crazy team shielding. Can turn around team fights as long as you're not against a mill. Zyra, good damage, but is very, very squishy. And if she doesn't get a lead, she will have a very hard time finding picks. Swain, Pantheon, Poppy are more just counter picks. They're not necessarily bad, but they do just have niche, um, very niche matchups where if you just blind pick these champions, you got to get really lucky that they're not going to counter you or that you have really good matchups into the enemy team. Otherwise, they're just going to feel kind of useless the entire game. Swain, very good into tanks. Pantheon, good into mobile guys who can't really get away from you or just very squishy. You could even pair Pantheon up with like a Lucian or an Ezreal, even Caitlyn. They're all very strong partners with Pantheon to just snowball games really quick. Maybe the enemy team has just a lot of scaling and you want to just blow them out early. Pantheon's got to do that. Um, Thresh is very strong. He does a lot more damage and scales a lot nicer. So if you are dedicated to hook champions, I think Thresh is your guy. Nautilus and Thresh are probably the best to engage sports. Braum, still very supportive and defensive, not as much of an engager, but if you're dual Q, he can be really brutal with his passive cold procs, getting the stun, and Leona as well just provides a lot of damage early to snowball lanes. Uh, they just they match up really well. If you just think of who are you pairing these supports with, Lucian, Ezreal, Smolder, just love all of the champions in S tier and most of them in A plus tier. Their A plus tier is essentially the same as S, but they just do the job a little bit worse, you know, and sometimes they're a bit more complicated, like Milio can be a bit more challenging. Soraka can be a bit more challenging managing health and trying to get different. Uh, she has a lot of agency, basically. Nami, I think in solo queue is probably just the best support because she can carry games with a bunch of damage and crazy healing. Um, whereas Lulu is probably the best duo queue or trio queue support, as there's just no one better to buff up and protect your AD carry or polymorph. Can do crazy things, or early trading patterns are very, very toxic and just brutal to play into. Um, So yeah, if you're looking to counter those, um, I would probably suggest Thresh or a more damage-focused Seraphine. You can rush like anti-heal and anti-shield to sort of negate a lot of the protection they offer. Um, Zyra is a bit harder, but she is still good. And Senna can also have a good matchup. Um, but in general, she's B tier, but Senna can have good matchups into Senna, Nami, Lulu. Um, and if you're a tank player, Nautilus Thresh is the way to go. So that is the support tier list.